So hi everyone, what 10-11 minute video really is an orientation for the new PA system, both on the rack itself and then on the mixer. Start off with a huge thank you for everything everyone does to support this anyway, and going through the journey of learning the new kit. In one sense it's very similar, but also an awful lot of it has changed a little bit, and so it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. So just going to orientate ourselves to the rack and then the mixer. I apologise up front to the experts amongst you. We're using kind of probably only about a third of the capability right now, and the intent is very much to just recreate what we have. Let's not go and start using AUX and monitors and all of the other capability we have just yet. Let's get it working. Let's make it a non-event. Obviously the priority is actually the worship and actually the service, and avoid any hiccups where we end up dominating. And once we get good at the basics, we can walk, then we're going to start running. So obviously once you get the rack out at the start of the service, it's pretty well labelled up. We're going for the same kind of instruments into the same input every week. The power supply is a kettle lead that goes into the back right hand corner on the side of the rack, and then you can click on at the left hand side of all the plugs, and that will just power everything up. The mixer itself takes about 15 seconds to wake up. You know it's awake when the Wi-Fi light is on solid, and yeah, that's pretty straightforward. The outputs of the mixer do still go via the Bose little mixer thing. That is now just in pass-through mode, so please don't touch that, don't mute it, just leave that be. And that then comes back, and actually the Ethernet connection, that's like a special lead connects to the front of the rack and then can go off to the Bose tower speaker. And for now that's the rig we're using. I know plans to be bringing extra speakers in due course, but again, we're starting simple. So everything's up, but we now need to control it. So any tablet, PC, phone can do. There's a PC which is now with the kit, which is where I start. There's an on-off switch which is pretty well labeled, and then so turn that on and it should just connect to the Soundcraft desk. If it doesn't, you can click in the network settings as you would on a normal computer, find Soundcraft. The password for both the Wi-Fi and the computer are written on the side of the mixing desk, so that you've got them if you need them, and then open up a browser and you'll see a screen looking a lot like this. And you know, the first thing I'd say do is let's get to a known starting point. So click on the cog, navigate to shows, click on Kairos default, and click on load. And so this has just loaded the default settings into the desk. It means that you know, where well, it's all from a known starting point. And then the magic button really is this mix gain button, or the button to the left. Button to the left shows what's going on in all the channels. It's effectively a big kind of, well, it's not really a graphic equalizer, but it shows what's live. You can see channel 18 has got a mic. It's actually the new handheld mic that's open, so you can see that moving up and down. But then if I click mix gain, I get a classic slider view, and I can look left and right at what's going on. If I click mix gain again, it takes me to the gain controls. So on the old analog desk, you had the big faders at the bottom, but also the little pots, little gains, rotary devices at the top to set the gain up. Well, that's the sliders here. If there's ever a channel where you just can't understand why you're not getting anything out of it, just check no one's set the gain down to 0. Also on here, by channel you can turn on plus 48 volts, so if you needed phantom power for whatever reason, we don't generally, but if you did, that's where you turn it on, and there are some other controls there as well. And knowing that, you can just, you know, push the sliders up for whatever you want, and you know, and off you go, and I can navigate left and right and see everything that exists. Obviously that's perhaps slightly hard to orientate ourselves around, and so over on the right here we have these views. So I click on view 1 and I can just see all the instruments. Click on view 2, I can see all the vocals. View 3, the radio mics, you can see the handheld mic there I'm using is bouncing around. If I turn this up, that then shows that that's live and in the mix. And then external is 16 and 17. The only thing line in is PC, and player left and right is the inbuilt MP3 player. And for each of these, to the right of it, I can mute it as a whole group. Yeah. And so, really that's all we need to do. We set a mix up at the start and the band sit down. Well, I'll mute the two bits of the band and mute the background music, and now it's just Ben. If he wants to use the laptop, I can unmute the external so we can hear that, and so on. And really that's it. Later on, as we get better into this, we might start using subgroups or VCAs. These are set up, and these effectively put like a submaster on each of those instruments, Vox, speakers, external, and the like. I thought we'd use this a lot. For now, actually, the muting thing seems to be simpler. So again, that just knowing that, it will get you 90% of the way there. A couple other little bits though that are worth going into. So this is the Vox view. So you can see I've got 5 microphones, and also the amount of reverb that's going into the overall mix. So it turned up a little bit. If I highlight a channel and then I click on edit, I get a graphic equalizer for that channel, so I can play around with whether I want more bass or how I want to really manipulate the sound. My other bit I would point out though is this presets icon at the top, and you can see at the moment this is female vocal. So obviously if I had perhaps this is Vox 1, which would be the lead singer. So if that was a male vocalist, I could click on male vocal and load that, and it would just bring in a different set of settings. Funnily enough, Soundcraft are pretty good at these, and actually they sound pretty good. There's a gate if you want it. There's a compressor. I'm also going to send out the link to the Soundcraft training videos. They talk a lot about this, and depending on your level of knowledge, it's really quite good. Generally, we don't need much. There's a little bit of compression, but we don't really use that. FX sends. So in the old desk we had one FX channel which went to the rotary knob with hall 1, 2, 3 and all the rest of it. Well, we have 4 channels here, 4 buses. We're only going to use one, the reverb one. So this is this is the amount of reverb on vocal 1. So this replaces the pot that was in the channel vertical on the analog decks. And then moving right, aux sends and patching. Well, we won't use those for now, but obviously if you were sending things down to the different outputs, this is where you control what gets sent where. A couple of other quirky ones. So I'm going to click on mix gain to get back to the start, and then click on instruments because that's what I want to see. Guitar 1 and 2 have a little bit of extra functionality. So in addition to the EQ gate and all that stuff, there's this Digitech. So if any of you use electric guitars in particular, you'll know that they tend to go through some effects pedals and then through some amplifiers which are either real or computer generated, and this allows us on channels 1 and 2, just channels 1 and 2, to do that modeling. So if I turn this on and I click on a preset, I don't know, let's do 80s lead, it's now loaded up a sound that would make your electric guitar sound like an 80s lead. Brilliant, very good. Slight word of caution here: if I left that on, then the next person who uses the desk, unless they really kind of go into the settings, won't know that that's been left on, and the lead guitar is going to sound really, really odd. So again, 2 things: one, load the default so that would kind of wipe this clean. Please don't overwrite the default, because you wouldn't want this left on by accident. And if you've got something which you know would be disruptive, please just make a point of turning it off at the end. Reality is acoustic guitars with their little battery powered microphones in them don't really need any of this, so that's for another day. Go back to mix gain. The last couple of bits, if I highlight the master section and go to edit, I get many of the same settings come up. But actually the bit I want to look at here is the AFS bit, the active feedback suppression system. Should always be on. If I click on setup, it should be on in live mode. and you can see here it's already detected at whatever that is, 4,421 hertz. There was a spike, and it detected that as some feedback, and so it has turned that down. So generally we just leave this alone. My sort of playing at home with it is it's really quite good. It does squeak for like a brief second, and then it will take that off. And so I'm hoping this means that, particularly for the speakers and the lapel mics in particular, where they do ring out quite a lot, well, hopefully we will have less of that, and we'll see how well that gets on in the live environment. As always, click on mix gain, gets me back to the home screen, and if in doubt, the views here will also get me home. A couple of other little points: if I need to play music, because there's no Wi-Fi here, I can't play Spotify from here to stream it, but if I click the arrow, and you can see here I can click on worship songs, click on where you want to start, press play, it will start playing worship music through the MP3 player, and here's the faders for that. Not showing yet, but I will upload in due course a set of instrumental songs. So if we were doing something a bit more prayerful, perhaps communion, or just want some much gentler background music, then you could obviously select that and play that. Likewise, when it comes to the sermon and we want to record it, click record, and it will just start recording it. You'll see on the front there's two memory sticks, a small USB stick and a longer one. The small US one contains the pre-recorded music and largely should be left alone. The big one is where the USB recordings go. You can see here it's just put in another WAV file, and that can then be taken off and uploaded. Back to the cog and shows. So you've done a brilliant setting, you've changed all the stuff I've got wrong, and you've got it singing for you. Still, please don't overdo Kairos default. But if you want to save it for yourself, then by all means click save, put your name in, and hyphen big band or whatever you want it to be, and then you can save it for yourself later so you can come back to it, and that's cool. But obviously, particularly if you started getting in here and you start playing with network or patching, start changing all of this, then the next person's bluntly not going to have a clue. So the default settings wipe all of this clean, wipe it all back to the basics, and obviously that's generally a good thing. So I think that's enough by way of introduction. That all is set up on this laptop. If you use your own device, it may look slightly differently. Some of the settings are global, some of them are local, but I'm sure you'll figure that out. This laptop is pretty good. It'll run for about an hour, so you're going to have to plug it in. There's a dedicated lead on the rack, and there's also a spare power supply that you could plug into the wall somewhere else if you want to go and stand at the back and hear how it all sounds. I'm sure I've forgotten loads, but that'll get us started. Only want to finish with thanking everyone for all their work and time again on doing this. If you get stuck, by all means, WhatsApp me, call me, either ahead of time or on the morning when you're setting up. Ben put the note out today saying that Mike's going to take over. I'm sure he wouldn't mind either, and I suspect this video will last about a month until we've learned how to do even better, and then we'll have to repeat it, but hopefully it's a good start. So thanks again, and have a good night.